makes architecture memorable? The history behind the construction, the choice of material, the uniqueness of the design, the grandeur or monumentality of the building. A memorable building causes us to shift focus away from our busy lives to something deeper. Memorable architecture impresses us, grabs our attention, and appeals to our natural inclination toward patterns, order, and harmony. It does not matter if the building is beautiful to some or ugly to others. Today's video looks at a building that, at first glance, will elicit a reaction in you. A reaction of sheer awe or disgust, or something in between. But you will remember this building, and it will make you rethink what our buildings are and what they could be. Stick around to find out more. My name is Angelo, and this is Architecture with Angelo. Crimea. Western media portrays this disputed peninsula as a post-Soviet war zone, a locus of the Russo-Ukrainian War. While yes, there is a war going on, there is another side to Crimea that the media seldom covers. This area is revered for its natural beauty, rolling hills along the Black Sea in a warm climate by the standards of the Ukraine. It has a rich history involving Byzantines, Ottomans, Russians, Soviets, and Ukrainians. A particularly important city in Crimea, Yalta, was especially beneficial during the Soviet era. When Soviets took power, they wanted to expand access to the city. Under the Tsarist Russian Empire, it was an exclusive area for the elites. But starting with Lenin, the Soviet Union wanted to encourage workers to go on a state-mandated paid vacation. They wanted to project an image of a society that placed the needs of their workers front and center. They constructed Soviet sanatoriums across the country, places for ordinary citizens to relax. They wanted to differentiate their definition of vacation from the capitalist West. While Westerners indulged through food, drink, and buying things on their vacation, Soviets wanted to instead focus on rest and promoting internal self-improvement, looking within for happiness, not gaining temporary happiness through conspicuous consumption. In the 1970s, the government commissioned architect Igor Vasilevsky to design a sanatorium situated on a steep hill overlooking the Black Sea. Faced with a list of difficult design constraints, he had to use ingenuity in the design process. Located on a fault line and prone to landslides, Vasilevsky literally faced an uphill battle. Despite these obstacles, though, he managed to design something both memorable and remarkable. He designed the Druzhba Sanatorium. Right off the bat, the building's striking design is apparent through how it seems to hover precariously over the landscape. When viewed from the beach, this building appears otherworldly, resembling a UFO. When viewed from the street, we see a bridge that functions as a portal. Tired workers would leave their troubles behind and cross this threshold into a different world, a place where they could recharge and rest. Constructed in the brutalist style, this building is made of concrete and glass. Instead of focusing on detail and ornament, the allure of this building is how it is constructed and how it uses geometry and monumentality to articulate its function. This is an extremely deliberate design move that goes back to the left-wing origins of modern architecture. The instinctual behavior of socialists and communists is creating a classless society. They believe that a sprawling mansion with statues and elaborate cornices everywhere is just a waste of money, and the byproduct of exploitative labor practices. They strip down architecture to its bare essentials, but preserve the feelings of awe we get when looking at an impressive building. Well, unless they're Stalinists. Under Soviet communism, this means that citizens are reminded that their government is not wasteful, but the size of the building and its eye-catching design reminds them that the government puts their needs first. Well, in theory at least. The Druzhba Sanatorium immerses its guests in nature. Its radial design provides all residents with either a view of the hills or a view of the Black Sea. By surrounding people with relaxing scenery, the logic was that people would be recharged and ready to work again for the state. Imagine after a long year of working in the factory, you can unwind and wake up to this view of the Black Sea. When Soviets wanted to socialize with other comrades, they had many options, such as relaxing in the sanatorium's pool. This futuristic room offered views of the Black Sea, but was still in the center of the sanatorium. The symmetrical geometric patterns on the roof convey a sense of order and calmness. It reminds me of the Goldstein residence, where you create a sense of peace by having the heaviness of the concrete contrast with the lightness of the water. Having a community space like this makes sense for a collectivist society. Spaces like this were called social condensers, meaning locations in a building where social activity was encouraged. The Jews West Sanatorium featured other social condensers, like cafes and a theater. Okay, so we get it. Symmetry, community, great views, wellness, health, blah, 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 blah. The structure. How was this thing actually put together? How did they pull it off? This building looks crazy. Like I said before, the architect had to juggle a bunch of different constraints. First, building on a hill, then building on a fault line, then building next to the ocean. A bunch of different challenges that by themselves would be pretty difficult to overcome, but together makes the project almost impossible. Many architects would run for the hills looking at this demanding site. But Igor and his team came up with ingenious solutions to these problems. The one thing that architects hate doing is designing boring structures. The majority of work that an architect will create in his life tends to be background noise, a bank here, an apartment building over there. When they get a chance to actually design something unique and not have an overly restrictive client or budget, it's a special opportunity for them. Igor and his team had ambitious sources of inspiration, looking to other examples of Soviet architecture that had a sci-fi modern brutalist form. One such project they looked into was never actually finished. It was called the Sunrise Sanatorium. It's located near the Nikitsky Botanical Garden in Yalta. This project had rooms appear to float on top of each other with ambitious cantilevers meeting at right angles. But what looks good on paper does not always translate into reality. Igor and his team deduced that the right angle cantilever used at this unfinished project would be weaker than the alternative, which would be a circular cantilever. He used the analogy of a stool as well, saying that a stool on 3 legs is plenty strong, and a circular cantilever can have a more even distribution of load than a right angle cantilever. So the legs in this analogy are supported by 3 thick concrete columns which double as stair towers. We see here how form and function are very interconnected. The ring shape has practical structural purposes and contributes to the building's concept. We see what makes this architecture memorable. It leaves an impact on you, the viewer. Imagine going to the beach and seeing this otherworldly structure emerging from the hill, resembling a secret layer of some kind. If I were at this beach, I would not want to look away. Even if this kind of architecture was not my thing, I would still be curious about it. The bold architectural statement this building makes is all very intentional. It goes back to the Soviet idea of everything being some kind of propaganda. Socialism and communism are very forward-thinking ideologies, always looking into the future. They consider capitalism as an antiquated system and disavow the aesthetics that accompany it. In a classless society, nobody experiences more beauty than others. Everyone gets the same stuff. So, of course, Soviet architects like Igor will be drawn to modern architecture because it takes out the details in favor of the essence of the design. Instead of rigid traditional styles, modern architecture can flow and swoop because of concrete, glass, and steel. It's a metaphor for a society triumphantly transcending the capitalist world and boldly entering the future. Well, in theory, at least. So a Soviet citizen, depending how prone he or she was to propaganda, would look at this sanatorium and consider it as a proud achievement of humanity or a drab concrete monolith. But this building will have an impact on them, and they will remember this building for the rest of their lives. Well, that's all I got. Thanks for watching.